Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to Boxing Unwrapped. Welcome, guys, to Boxing Unwrapped, the podcast that keeps you guessing and guessing. This week, we've got a super special episode, a deep dive for you on who the F is Lomachenko. And Andy, do you want to tell the people why we thought this was a good time to finally talk about the man himself?
Yeah, of course. So his quest for eternal glory continues on. Vasily Lomachenko is fighting this weekend versus Britain's own Luke Campbell. He's a massive favourite to add the third belt within the weight division to his collection, and he's said he's only interested in history and legacy building, which is quite interesting. So as he stands on the cusp of yet another groundbreaking achievement, we thought it might be an interesting time to have a bit of a deep dive and find out a little bit more about the man nicknamed The Matrix.
So let's dive in to who the F is Vasyl Lomachenko. I mean,
he's nicknamed The Matrix.
The Matrix. Well, I mean, we've kind of danced around this episode in the past before because we're both such massive fans. But for some of our probably more recent listeners, we should maybe talk a little bit about his early life. Because actually this is it's crazy. I read this article that was talking about how basically Vasyl Lomachenko is actually just a science experiment, right? Because for those of you,
Wolverine or something,
like Wolverine, totally like a boxing Wolverine. Because for those of you who don't know, his father Anatoly Lomachenko is actually a boxing coach, and before Vasyl was born. It was always going to be a thing that Vasyl was going to be a boxer. Before he even took his first breath, he was going to be a boxer. That was it. His father was an amateur boxer and then a boxing coach. And so, I read this thing that said that the first time that Vasyl Lomachenko wore boxing gloves, he was 3 days old.
Yeah, I heard that as well.
Fucking mental, man. It's absolutely mental to think. But, he comes from a pretty, sporty family. His mother is a gymnast and a martial artist. And his sister and wife are both acrobats.
No, they're not the same person.
No. His sister is an acrobat. Also, his wife is an acrobat.
Right.
So,
just that is worth clarifying.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't think it's they wanted to breed the perfect boxer through the sister.
He's unbeatable.
He's unbeatable.
So there's a lot of chat. It's quite sort of well known, the whole point about when he was growing up. So he started boxing proper at 4, which is fairly early doors for boxers. We've spent a lot of time over the past months and months talking about theories about the impact of the starting age to the precision that the boxer has and to the quality, and it tends to be that the ones that start very, very young seem to have some kind of innate advantage, as it would be the case with lots of other sports. So he started boxing at 4. And the most authoritative thing that I saw said that he boxed from 4 until 9, and then it was at 9 that he kind of took a step back from the boxing based on his father's instruction, and was doing all sorts of traditional Ukrainian dancing, which is until he was 13, and then when his footwork was good enough, he was then allowed to go back to the boxing or push back into the boxing, but only once he'd mastered the feat.
And the thing is as well, I've read that actually Vasyl is quite embarrassed about doing this dancing. Like whenever people bring it up, he actually finds it quite embarrassing that he had to do like this Ukrainian folk dance for years. Because like they have to wear these like pantaloons.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
and he had to wear them, like, he had to, put on this national dress for 2 hours a day after school. And he also, like, he travelled the country with national dance troupes. Like, so, like, he was actually, like, it's not just, like, like, some people, like, go to dance lessons as a kid and stuff. Like, he was actually, like, performing at, like, pretty high level doing that as well. It's insane.
He's got the skills, but like if you ever see, well, obviously see his fights, but equally, or even more so, if you see, you can look them up on YouTube. Any of his footwork drills from his training camps, his foot speed and foot placement is, he's got this like way of being able to move his feet very, very rapidly and maintaining like perfect balance and form while he's doing it, which I think is one of the things that separates him from other boxers. But I think a big part of that will be down to that kind of prime age dancing pantaloon nonsense.
Because he does have like incredible balance. Like you can just tell that his balance works well, and like he never lumbers about the ring. You see a lot of people who lumber about, it's just kind of back and forward. Like, he creates angles that no one else can seem to create. And that's probably down to this, which is incredible.
The talent and the training, for sure.
Yeah.
It was massively. It's a bit of a brilliant stroke from his father to do it.
Old Papachenko, as he's known.
Papachenko.
Old Papachenko.
Papachenko, you do no more that. You do dance first, then you go back to boxing.
Totally, and he had to like basically prove that he was good enough to then to start boxing again. And his dad, like, apparently, like when he was like still, he'd left the pantaloon era. Like he wasn't allowed to like throw punches and put on gloves for ages. He just had to like work on his footwork for ages and ages and ages before he was then like allowed to start punching stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
That is interesting. That's interesting. It was like, I wonder how his father knew it was going to work. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, if he's gone hockey, it would have been much better if he hadn't pricked about for dancing for 4 years.
I don't know. I mean, I guess because he's a boxing coach, and like this article that I read about him being like a science experiment, I think his father probably thought like, well, where are the deficiencies in most boxers?
Footwork.
It's footwork. And so if you can instill incredible footwork in a boxer before they actually start punching, then you can go from there. Because actually he did do like some martial arts as a child as well. He did like a Russian martial art called Sambo.
Have we spoken about that before?
I think we might have done, I think we might have done. So, he did have like some martial arts training as well. But obviously the boxing came in much later. And, when he did begin his amateur career and like broke on into the amateur stage in 2007 at the World Championships in Chicago, he fucking blew it away. This was actually the only time. It was the time he managed to avenge his only loss, because he got into the final with a Russian boxer called Albert Albert Selimov, and he'd lost to this guy when he was like. He lost to this guy in this World Championships, and then he comes back at the 2008 Olympics game and beats him to win the gold medal and the Val Barker trophy.
Yes.
You know?
And when he won his gold medal, he didn't just beat all the opponents. Like, he won by a ridiculous margin in the fights. I think it was a lot closer when he moved up the division for the next Olympics, but his first Olympic gold, he won like an absolute canter. He was like miles ahead of everyone.
I watched some of his amateur highlights preparing for this, and honestly, it's kind of shocking to watch because I also on BoxRec you can actually go into like people's amateur records as well if they're on there. Now this doesn't list his like whole 325, but it lists like the 85 that you would have. They were probably at like World Championships, Europeans and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times he was like fighting boys who were like having their debut, or they'd had like one fight or two fights, right? And the most it would, later in his career, he was fighting people who had like maybe 20 fights. But you're watching him against some of these lads, and like he's just storming them. Like absolutely swarming them with tons of punches. And they've probably like done quite well. They're like 14, 15, they've done all right. And then they arrive in the ring feeling relatively confident, and they just get like hit with a barrage of punches and like Ukrainian footwork, It's actually quite sad to watch sometimes because it looks like you kind of have a professional boxer up against a child.
Oh, me. That's a shame. So, yeah, I was just looking at his record there. So, when he won the Olympics in 2008, the chap you referenced, Albert Selimov, who'd beaten him in the amateurs before, in 2007, he beat him 14-7, and then the other ones 13-1, 12-3, 10-1, and 9-1. So, like, he didn't just win, but he was like completely like different level in terms of he absolutely schooled all the opponents in that tournament. So
yeah,
it's impressive to win Olympic gold at a canter. That's going some. It's impressive.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, he didn't just like win at an amateur level. Like he won everything. Right? I mean, literally everything that, you could possibly imagine. So, he's got World Championships, European Championships, Olympic gold medals. He's just like unstoppable when it comes to boxing at this level. But what I find quite interesting as well is like you find a lot of boxers who do well at an Olympics, and then they've won their gold medal, and then they move professional. Where he didn't, he's stuck in for another Worlds, stuck in for another Olympics, and then he got 396 wins as an amateur, one loss that we talked about, and then he went on to do that like intermediate thing, the World Series of Boxing. Which like some people say should be like considered professional because actually like you don't wear headgear and stuff.
Yeah, it's at the very least it's like a kind of halfway house, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a halfway house. Before he then stepped up to go into the professional level, which actually like for a professional with his kind of experience, and also like the amount that people talk about him as well. It's funny to think that he's both 31 years old and only has 14 pro fights under his belt.
Yeah.
It
is true. Yeah, it's very true. Do you know what just occurred to me that like in terms of what he did to go for the second Olympics, it's a kind of. I mean, I guess he must have had his reasons behind it, but in terms of like I don't know things like the finances and stuff, like you're taking a bit of a risk because, say for example, you like had a severe injury or you started to go downhill like during that period, you'd never get the chance to make the money that you do as a professional that obviously you don't as an amateur. So like by postponing it for so long, you are taking a bit of a risk with your kind of like financing and your future, aren't you?
Totally. I mean, it's 4 years as an amateur. You know, it's because like you can't have like big sponsorship deals or anything like that unless, for whatever reason, the Ukrainian government have like a big like funding purse for like Olympic athletes in the boxing world. I don't know, perhaps, but you know, I don't think it's going to be any more than what a British athlete would take. You know, you are kind of saying, well, I'm going to get a lot older because, like, actually, you know, he's then having to almost like catch up. And maybe that is part of the reason why he's so like set on making history, because in some ways he doesn't actually have that much time to do it.
No, agree.
You know,
where if he'd had an extra 4 years, he could be taking his time a lot more. Yeah, I agree. Because he's come out recently and said he doesn't want to fight forever.
Yeah,
he's not going to do a Pacquiao and keep fighting until he's 40.
Well, I mean, and I guess like, you know, okay, there's probably a limit to like the size that he could reach, but
he can't go up anymore. He's saying he can't go up anymore.
Exactly. So like he's gonna have to keep making weight. You know, and as a 31-year-old, 32-year-old man, it's gonna get harder and harder to make weight unless you share a doctor with Manny Pacquiao.
I think he's
and a butcher with Saul Canelo.
I think he's relatively small for the weight division. Like I don't think he's actually even naturally a lightweight. Like so, I don't know if he'll have an issue. I don't know how far off an issue with the weight is, but I read something. He was interviewed recently in the build up to the Campbell fight, and he's saying that like if he becomes undisputed, he's not sure. Because it's kind of like, what is there then left to do? You know, so I don't know. See?
I don't know.
See how much longer he goes on.
Do you think he would get... I think he's the kind of guy that would get the hunger, though. You know, that would then come back, like have a layoff and then come back and do something else.
Potentially. You would think that, like, it's a bit... If it's been your entire life, you know, since you've been 4 years old, it's difficult to imagine just going like, I can walk away from this even though I'm clearly still good enough to compete. It's quite a, you'd have to be particular mindset to do it. But don't know.
I know. I like what I find it kind of strange, like to think that he would. Let's say like he manages to do to get all the belts by next year. Like a fight against Comey, and then he's like, yeah, that's it, I'm out. Like, I just don't know if he could do it. I mean, considering, like, let's go through, let's see, so he's got, you know, 2 Olympic golds. He's got a World Junior Championships, a World Championship, 3 World Championships, and he's got... you know, his 6 fights as World Series of Boxing, plus now he has soon probably to claim his 3rd belt
at this division, but he's claimed ones at the lower ones.
at the lower ones as well. So I mean, like, you know, CV wise, how do you then go like, oh well, that's it, I'm done, I'm over. Yeah, I've done everything I can. I can't get any bigger. I can't grow.
I don't know. I just don't know what he's going to do.
I mean, let's talk a little bit now about when he turned professional. So, you know, he did turn professional in 2013. So, I mean, actually, you know, a bit of a while away, actually, to think... So, you know, usually when you turn professional, it's just fight after fight after fight after fight. You know, you're fighting every few months, but... you know, his first fight went very well against Jose Ramirez, absolutely demolished him, and then he comes up against Orlando Salido at the Almadome, what's it called? The Almadome in San Antonio. And this was for the vacant WBO World Featherweight title. And this, guys, is his only professional loss. And it was by split decision. But controversial.
Very controversial because it's quite an interesting one. Like, to be honest, I mean, I think it must have been to do with the opportunity that he was able to try and win a belt in his second fight. But as a even though he was so comprehensively decorated and experienced as an amateur, Orlando Salido is not the sort of fighter that you want your second professional fight against. Because he wrote the book on experience and, well, in this fight, dirty tricks. So he's a street fighter. He's a wily street fighter, and he knows how to try and use the advantages that he might have.
Mm-hmm. He came in overweight. So actually, it turned out it wasn't for the belt. Like he couldn't retain the belt anyway. Because he was overweight.
I think it was vacant, so but he couldn't win it.
Yeah, he couldn't win it. And repeatedly punched Lomachenko below the belt. And the refs, like, I've watched the fight back, and the ref does absolutely nothing about it.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
Really bizarre. We've seen fights more recently where it's quite clear and the refs are like stepping in. When in this case, the ref like didn't even say a damn thing, and like Lomachenko's like protesting, but like still fighting on. And so he did unfortunately lose this fight, which I mean for Top Rank, I mean Bob Arum, imagine like probably was like, what the fuck is this going on, you know? But like he didn't let it perturb him. Came back, fought for the same belt against Gary Allen Russell Jr. and won by majority decision.
Now, and to be honest, like as a fight, or as your third professional fight, having just been beaten, Gary Russell Jr. is he's pretty tough opponent. He is very, very good.
Yeah.
He's like a top level fighter, like really superb level fighter.
He had 24 wins. He had 24 wins before going up against Lomachenko, who had 1 win and 1 defeat at this point.
The Guy Russell Jr. is often quoted as having the fastest hands in boxing. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how scientific that is, but he's a very high quality operator. He's probably in his division now. I'm trying to think, he'd probably be the second best featherweight after Santa Cruz, if I'm not getting mistaken. But he's a very high level guy, is my point. And to fight him after having just been beaten is pretty impressive. It's just worth saying about the Salido fight, apart from the low blows, which the referee did nothing about. When you say you're speaking about the weight point there, even accounting for it, some people still thought that Lomachenko had won it, but Salido came in like over 2 pounds over the limit, which at that weight is quite a lot, and then he rehydrated to over 20 pounds over the limit. So, and the accusation is that he deliberately missed weight. The accusation is he had no intention of reaching 126 pounds. And he was always going to, make a token effort to come near it, and then he was going to blow back up to like a giant balloon. So he had a and you can see the size. When you watch it, you can see the size difference between the two of them. Like Salido looks much heavier in that fight. So it wasn't a fair fight, and a lot of people were saying that was Salido's deliberate intention to give himself every advantage, as well as all throughout the fight he kept like grabbing his gloves under his armpits and stuff, like pulling him and stuff. It was a bit of a hot mess. Anyway, sorry, I thought that was worth painting a bit of colour for anyone that's not watched it.
Well, yeah, and then he continues. He continues to kind of fight. Actually, when you're looking up against his record, none of the guys really he went up against, especially early on, were nobodies. He was fighting named opponents throughout. It's actually kind of unbelievable. Then as he kind of keeps moving on and moving on, keeps winning. He's won his featherweight titles, super featherweight titles. Then decides to kind of come up against the probably one of the more famous opponents who actually stepped up in weight to fight him, but Rigondo. And this fight, actually, I went back and watched it for this pod, and it's kind of sad, actually, because Rigondo is much smaller than Lomachenko in this fight anyway, because he's stepped up in weight, but he was just battered around the ring.
He didn't know what to do, did he?
No.
It was he's apart from Lomachenko, one of the most decorated amateur fighters ever. He's also got 2 Olympic gold medals. So, he's a phenomenal amateur and a very successful professional. But he was coming up in weight, and he just didn't. And yeah, he just looks really sad during the fight, he just doesn't know what to do. This is one of the most talented boxers of his generation. He's just I don't know what to do with him. So because he didn't have any advantage, he didn't have any size or strength advantage. He just didn't know how to to try and make any headway at Lomachenko. Just nothing he did work. So he kind of got fairly despondent fairly quickly in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, and then he obviously quits, and because Lomachenko's previous 3 opponents all retired, he was like, "I'm going to change my name to Lomachenko." Class.
It's very nice. So I think psychologically, for these world class operators to just be so, I think it was a humiliation that they couldn't bear is effectively what he does, and this is what makes him so unique. I don't know if there are any other boxers who are doing that certainly not that aren't on a world stage, but who are basically psychologically breaking fighters, other world class fighters, where they go, "There's no point. I can't do this anymore. I'm quitting." So for him to have done it 4 times in a row is, I think, fairly exceptional, and it's because he's operating on a level removed from other fighters. I think obviously his physical ability and his agility, but also in terms of what he's doing, mentally, thinking his way through the fight in such a way as that they feel completely flummoxed as to what to do, and that's unique almost, I think.
Well, and I think this goes this probably ties in slightly with his more unique training methods. So he does things that he plays chess. He has to do mind games as well alongside his actual physical stuff. So they're trying to train him to think while he's mentally tired and shit like that, which I probably gives him this intellectual ability to think way faster than his opponents, because sometimes you see him do stuff and 9 times out of 10 the punches he's throwing aren't necessarily to do any damage. They're only there to confuse his opponents. Or
to a distraction sort of thing.
Yeah, distraction techniques, which I don't know of any fighter that has a similar style like that does that. He'll just paw at people in different locations to kind of get them to move a hand here or something, and then then throw 7 or 8 more punches with actual welly to them. It's incredible. It's really incredible.
Because his movement's so good, I watched this analysis of it, and one of the other things he does is he will do a very slow punch or put his hand up almost like he's doing a jab, but he's doing it against people that are holding a high guard. He's doing it to block their vision, and then he's moving because his footwork is so good he can then change the angle of the attack. So while he's kind of blocking off their vision, he's moving at the same time, and because he's able to move so well that he can actually then throw punches like out of sight almost, which seems almost unfair, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so and there aren't that many boxers that do that as well. So he kind of worked out that that's a very effective technique.
Yeah. And after he fights Rigondo, he then steps up to another weight class and fights George Linares. So his first, and this is the thing as well, right? His first fight at lightweight, he then goes against a guy who's got 43 wins and 3 losses at that division. Like, Jorge Linares is a fucking good fighter as well.
Yeah, he's considered, I think, one of the... certainly, that I guess there's a lot more question marks about him
now,
in recent times. But at that point, he was considered, like a special fighter.
So, Lomachenko doesn't take, like, a warm-up fight at lightweight. He goes like, oh no, fuck it, I'll just fight for a belt right now. Against like a considerably larger man, actually.
Very much so. Very noticeably so, yeah.
Noticeably so. And, suffers his first knockdown of his career against Linares. I remember watching that fight and then seeing him get hit by this punch from Linares and landing on his ass. And I was like, holy fuck, this is going to be like some tough work. But yet, he still comes back and manages to drop Linares with probably one of the best liver shots I think I've ever seen.
He winds up for it. He puts everything into that.
Totally. It was unbelievable. I'm surprised like Linares' liver didn't explode, actually. And it's just done. Like, there was absolutely no way he was getting up after that.
No.
No
chance. It was funny though, because like on the judges' scorecard, the fight was scored. I think 2 of them had it in Lomachenko's favor and one in Linares' favor. But I thought, apart from like the flash knockdown, I thought Lomachenko was so far ahead in terms of what his output was in terms of landing meaningful shots. But I don't know. A lot of people said it was like a close fight up to that point. I didn't personally think it was. I thought the landed meaningful shots were nearly all from Lomachenko, but he certainly ground him down at the end, and then obviously that was the big finisher. But yeah.
Now he injures his elbow in this fight and has to take a bit of it's his shoulder. He injured his shoulder in this fight, and remember he has to take some time off to get some surgery. So this was in the May. He comes back in December of 2018 against Jose Pedraza, having like a 7-month layoff, and then it's also like, well, I'll just fight for another world title while I'm fucking at it. And he then he takes Pedraza to a unanimous decision. I remember watching it and thinking this definitely was not peak Lomachenko at any point.
Yes. Yeah, I remember you saying that, yeah.
But he still manages to kind of do the business at Madison Square Garden, until he then has his last fight with Anthony Crolla in April of this year, and I think it's safe to say the old Lomachenko is back, right?
He was looking pretty peak in that fight. He was
looking freaking peak. Poor Anthony Crolla. He has got his fucking payday out of that fight, but my God, like, I'd love him to say what was actually going through his mind in that first round when he starts getting hit with an absolute barrage of punches. You could almost instantly see, like, we all knew that Anthony Crolla had absolutely no right to be in that ring with him before the fight started. But as soon as the fight started, you were like, oh, someone pull him out. This doesn't look good.
Yeah, Crolla's like a pretty, he's a high-level operator. He's had a world title, and, he has beaten, had the 2 epic fights against Linares, which he lost both of them, but one of them he took him the first one he took him very, very close. But, yeah, I just think there was a levels thing, wasn't there?
But here's the question. is Lomachenko actually on like a level above world level? Is he on like kind of like super level? Because he's just like he does seem on his day almost unstoppable. Mm-hmm. As long as he's fighting someone who's relatively the same size as him.
Yeah, which if you looked at the pictures, we can talk about it more elsewhere. But like the pictures of them face to face, Campbell and Lomachenko. Campbell officially is like 2 inches taller than him. He looks like he's towering over him. He does look a lot longer, a lot taller, a lot rangier. So
yeah, I mean, we're now at this point where he fights Luke Campbell at the weekend for an extra strap. And I mean, I guess we can talk about it. I mean, Luke Campbell is Luke Campbell. Interestingly, I think for Lomachenko in this instance, he's coming up against another southpaw.
Yes.
Now we know that Lomachenko does not mind, switching back and forth. He's quite, he's very fluid when he fights anyway. But, is this going to have an effect on the styles when they meet? How is he going to kind of break down that? Because he's quite inside as well. He loves getting inside. And he's going to need to against the kind of longer reach of Luke Campbell as well.
Yes, definitely.
So how does he overcome that jab, without using his kind of southpaw advantage? I think is the kind of interesting one.
Mm-hmm. Agree. I read this. I saw this interview that everyone's favorite trainer turned pundit in the US, Teddy Atlas, was given, and his phrase for Lomachenko was that he's aggressive while being elusive, which is obviously kind of how you'd want to be.
Yeah.
It's very true. It's a very fair comment. It's quite a nice phrase. So he's like a kind of pressure fighter, but like an incredibly like thoughtful pressure fighter.
Yeah.
Where there's always like a considered effort to think about what's coming back and to avoid as much as possible, as opposed to just being a you hit me, I'll hit you, you hit me, I'll hit you sort of fighter. Yeah. He's like you don't even know where the fuck I am when I'm hitting you, but I'm right in your face. I'm right there, but you can't see me, and I've hit you in the face again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be interesting to see how he deals with having the size, because officially it says that Lomachenko's 5'7", but actually I've heard a lot of reports it's actually more like 5'6" on stilts. So to be up against a guy 5'9" with longer reach, like it is, it's going to be one of those things. I think when we saw against Pedraza, actually, Pedraza kept Lomachenko at bay quite well with his jab. He was considerably taller, had a considerably long reach, and you could see how difficult it was for Lomachenko to do his thing. Although Pedraza lost on all the cards, it was clear to see that he frustrated Lomachenko with his jab. So can Luke Campbell do the same this time round?
Mm-hmm. It's his trainer certainly thinks so. He says, McGuigan says that Campbell's size and power will beat Lomachenko's speed and agility through range and timing. Which, it sounds very good.
It does sound very good. In theory.
It sounds very good, yeah. I wonder what else is worth kind of commenting on in terms of anything. I couldn't find anything relating to any controversies or anything like that. Did you find it?
Absolutely none whatsoever. I think we found someone...
Disappointingly.
Yeah, I think we found someone who is like... He lives and breathes boxing. I don't think Papachenko would have let him go down the pub on a Friday night or like hang around a park drinking bottles of Buckfast, to be honest. I think he was like, no, you go put your pantaloons on and go dance for 2 hours. You will be a world champion.
Yes, Papa.
Yes, Papachenko.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything. He's married and he has a child, I think, if I remember correctly. But that's it. Like, there's nothing. There seems to be basically nothing online about him in terms of personal life or controversies. Doesn't really say an awful lot. He says his lack of English will stop him from being a star, but has no bearing on his legacy building.
No, not at all. And the one thing I did read is that he's actually got a bit of a penchant for flash trainers. He likes wearing like a flash trainer. And I think if that's the biggest thing, then I think you're all right. Actually, to be honest.
Yeah, you just about get it.
You know, fucking Adrian Broner. That's for certain.
He's earned some money. I noticed that he got a lot of. I think he had a lot of different boxing promoters clambering over each other to try and sign him when he became a professional, because obviously everyone knew how good he was. So he got like big purses and big deals from right at the start. So he's had lots and lots of like £1 million plus paydays for his fights, even from early doors in his professional career, which for the weight division and for someone like relatively low number of professional fights is quite a lot. But so he's got lots of money to buy some trainers. As long as he don't buy too many, should be okay.
Exactly. Be sensible with your trainer buying. Well, guys, I think that's probably us for our Who the F is Vasyl Lomachenko. Keep an eye out for later in the week. We're going to have What the F is the Boxing News with all the kind of rundowns of last week's fight, a little more chat about the Lomachenko-Campbell fight with the full undercard, and all the other good shit that goes on with it. So, with that in mind, it's goodbye from me, Ryan.
And goodbye from me, Andrew.